recording and we'll start the night. So, greetings and welcome to this week's updates and discussion. And well, what another week it's been yet again. We just had the super, because it was closest orbit to the Earth, new moon in Pisces. And this new moon is all about following your bliss. But that's not as self-centered as it may sound. You know, after all, more than any other sign, Pisces understands that all is one and everything is interconnected. So when we focus on what we love, the good vibes can help. Well, they can't help but ripple out into, you know, the world around us. And isn't that exactly what the world and probably most people in it need right now? So, so I just wanted to quickly share with you all what's been happening here this week and may have been happening for some of you as well. It all started, I think, last Wednesday night when I was overwhelmed by a deep and loud noise, like a deep hum, sounded like a motor noise. I've heard this sound from time to time in the past. I heard it at my daughter's in the afternoon, but I put it down to either the traffic or the Wi-Fi or the power lines because she's in suburbia. So I didn't pay too much heed to it then. But by the time I drove the hour home up to the cabin, it was not only still there, but very much louder and more noticeable. It was sort of emanating from the sky and seemed to be also emanating from the earth at the same time. And it was even loud inside the cabin. Now, Margaret, who lives about half an hour from me here, also heard the same noise. So I know it wasn't a figment of my imagination or a result of any known phenomena. But it was largely omnipresent. It was constant. It was directionless and difficult to say if you kind of felt it or heard it. I kind of think that it was both. It was definitely not music, nor a motor, nor anything else that I investigated. And when I checked in with the neighbours, they didn't hear it at all. So obviously not everyone is hearing it. However, there's been many reports around the globe about this cosmic hum. Right now, the last few days it's kind of eased off. I'm still aware of it though. So it's still slightly present, and it is an additional sound in addition to that normal high-pitched ringing that we get and the tones, the high-pitched tones, because it tends to be more than one tone at the moment. So at the same time, this hum was also vibrating like all the cells in my body at that same deep kind of low resonance. So question is, can you hear the mysterious global hum? And we'll talk about that when we're finished. So if anyone else has heard this or has any theories, I'd be very interested to hear from you. I know what I'm sort of thinking it is, but I'd like to hear if anyone else is experiencing it and what their theory is for it. And we'll talk about it at the end. So now moving right along, I wanted to expand this evening on a subject that we sort of touched on last week, and that is the seals which we must pass through before we can go up into a new frequency level or a new embodiment of that which we are. And it's also known commonly as the ring pass knot. So what is the ring pass knot and why is it so important in our spiritual evolution? Well, in our lives, there is sort of a binding force that requires that we learn all we must learn before we can move on to a new experience or new experiences. There are certain lessons we must master if we would grow beyond our limitations and our fears and our, what's called vain imaginings, which is the things that, the programs in us that are actually not truth. So this binding force is known in esoteric psychology as the ring pass knot, which is the seals that we just briefly touched on last week. So we all have a ring pass knot, or a series of them, and it shifts with each lesson. Each level of that we go up, we learn to apply with wisdom and intelligence and skill. And even though it is human to be hassled by our responsibilities and our limitations, these are directly related to what we are learning in expressing our higher self in effective ways now, which is creating the future. And believe me, I'm not good at this yet. We often seem to be caught in sort of holding patterns, practicing skills and coming to realizations about things that may seem meaningless or futile in the moment. However, these set the stage for abilities we'll have to demonstrate in future life experiences and chapters, or on future timelines. Overcoming limitations and impatience as we slowly and surely master what we have to master ensures our better self opportunities to show itself in those higher timelines, in those future timelines. So all of these relate directly to what's called our Dharma, or our higher truth of self, which is that which we really are. And these come forth as we master the divine laws related directly to what is called the ring pass knot, which is that seal. So in the wisdom tradition, interestingly, Saturn also rules what is known as the ring pass knot. It is where we meet the fear that separates us from our own divinity, dominion, and perfection. As we grow, our ring pass knot also grows. So the ring pass knot defines what is and is not permitted, for want of a better word, from the angle of your own soul's growth, both in terms of the skills as well as comprehension. And that's why we're learning about different ring pass knot, both personally and, as you know, everything is collectively. So we define the field of our disillusionment, and this disillusionment is usually like just programming, by the nature of our predisposing patterns of attachments to perceptions and interpretations about life. And we all, like we talked about last week, have these subconscious programs running, and they are how we perceive and interpret our lives. Everything that is subject to our perceptions and minds becomes a temporary form we can learn from, both by its appearance and its eventual disappearance. So how much fear and enslavement and disempowerment we experience around the comings and goings of whatever phenomena is in our lives at the time shows us our ring pass knot. And I've been shown very clearly this week exactly what my ring pass knot is at this point in time. So the ring pass knot is comprised of what we are and what we are not. So the limits set by our own response to the edge of our fear, as well as the threshold of revelation. So it's, it is just that little membrane that we've got to get through. Once we integrate and transmute whatever the fear is. And another important aspect of our ring pass knot are our self-created blind spots and limited ego mind hindering, or needlessly limiting what we are willing to accept and become as spirits in the material world. So once again, it's that also that fear of how powerful and how we are that being of light. So in reality, there's no limit to the growth of the soul, but there are limitations of form, which we are in form at the moment. Different ones required at different seasons of life. And this teaches us a well-rounded sort of wisdom and offers textures to our understanding through knowing when to stop, when to go, when to work, when to play, whether in the physical, our emotional realms, our mental realms, or our spiritual realms of experience. So as we learn not to take certain lessons personally, we can examine how we all have been limited by various aspects of our understanding that set up certain lessons, both individual and interactive, unique as well as recurring until we transcend them. And we all know this is a time where all that's really coming up to the surface. So as we extend the scope of how our lessons relate to our personality growth, as well as what we are to do in the world, what our mission is, those patterns of our lives show us really important clues towards the larger perspective about things, resources, the players and their roles, and our own relationship to our expectations. And it's leading each of us, you and me and the entirety of humanity, beyond our old limits and roles, because they were programmed into us anyway. They're not actually us at all. Since each of us is a seed within the greater life of humanity as a whole, each lesson we as individuals master aids the progress of all, thus the ascension of those upon the planet at the moment. And it's sort of like, oh, you know, why do I have to do it for everyone else? Well, technically you're just doing it for yourself, but we are so innately powerful and so innately connected that it also flows out in that unity field to the others, which is a good thing. So begin to frame everything that presents itself to you with an eye to opening your heart to an even greater sort of group recognition, effective service, and self-forgetfulness. And self-forgetfulness is something I still really struggle with, because it still feels like things are happening to me, certain things. So, and coupled to an even greater expression of goodwill. That way your expression of love will become more consistent, and you'll know your connectedness with other beings, and you'll drop your fears, which is, you know, what we're all trying to achieve. Though much of this sort of sounds, you know, gobbledygook or maybe difficult to achieve, it's really an inevitability once you get into the groove and stay on track through time and experience. Keep sort of synthesizing your awareness as you move from realization to application to further realizations and then further applications. The fantastic goal of perfecting our consciousness through practices of self-realization is within reach for us all. And we're all probably very much consciously involved with that for ourselves. And it is about simply coming to the right point of view and show up, ready to play. So, yeah, for me, I've had a challenging week. But when I sit with what's going on, for me, it was very much the pattern of the little young Juanita, well, that was my whole childhood really, where I was being told, you're bad, you're naughty, you don't deserve. So, you know, the very, and even though you work through layers of this stuff, the very inner layers, the real icky stuff in the middle is being shown to me through things that are happening currently in my life, that pattern is still there and needs to be worked through so that I can raise through that next level of the ring past knot. So anyway, interesting times, my friends, interesting times. So I think we might just have a little go at our telepathy practice exercise for this week. And I've decided to make it a little easier because I felt that last week I left things a little too open for, especially for our first attempt at it. So this week I have 3 items which I will show you before we begin the process, one of which will be the picture that I will be sending through tonight, that telepathic image. So I might see if I can share my screen with you and show you the pictures. Okay, let me just unmute you all for a sec. So, can everyone see that?
Yes.
Yep.
Yep.
So we have an apple, we have a tree, and we have a mountain. So it will be one of those 3 images that, and it's best not to overthink it. Often it's best just to go with what you get first. So I'm actually going to wait a minute. Stop that share now. Oh, chat.